One of the most significant paradigm shifts or awarenesses that I've, I guess, that have emerged in the last few years for me, courtesy in part of the perspective of Terence McKenna, is the distinction between words and reality and the link between consciousness and words. And it begins like this. Try and think a thought or have an awareness without words. In other words, try and be aware of something without being aware of the words that tell you you're aware of something. Now, you might feel a sensation of warmth, for example. But are you aware of the sensation of warmth, or are you aware of the word warm at this location in my body, which is a collection of words? Now, once we establish the link between consciousness and words, one of the things that we become aware of is how narrow words are compared to the multidimensional object that they represent. So words are not reality. They are representative of reality. And the representative of reality as a heuristic symbol of reality is a dumbed down version, a significantly dumbed down version of the reality. And you can think of your first experience of a rainbow. Perhaps you're driving along and you look up and there's this shimmering. And the shimmering has an emotional dimension. It has a sense of wonder to it. It has an expanse. It has something ephemeral. It is a very large object in consciousness. And someone pierces the dimensionality by reducing it down to words. Oh, that's a rainbow. That's what happens when the sun touches water in the atmosphere or in the in the air. That's nothing more than light refracting off of bits of water. So that whole wonder that you feel and the expanse, and it could be this and it could be that, and it maybe means this, and maybe perhaps it's a synchronicity with I was just thinking of something magical and then I looked up, and so it could be a synchronicity, it could be a doorway to joy, it could be a message from the other side, it could be, is, oh, that's a rainbow. And that's all it is. I know that. Yeah, I've seen rainbows before. And this crude referencing of language then becomes the symbol that one references from this point forward. It's not actually the rainbow. It's the word rainbow. And so we have the brain, and then we have the multidimensional object, and then we have a little box of sound that we place over the object, and from this point forth we reference the box of sound. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's so discouraging to talk about sex or sacred spiritual experiences. I went into a meditation, some figure in a black hood or something came over and gave me this symbol and said, "This is your symbol." And it was a chair. Just a chair. And that was my meditation. Well, it's now been reduced to these little symbols. Well, that doesn't sound very important. That doesn't sound significant. Because the words are not important and the words are not significant. And that's the other tyranny of language, is that every cult has a ranking system around words. And one of the most irritating phenomena is when labels get ranked and stereotyped to a point where the object itself is willfully ignored in favor of the stereotype. I'm marrying a doctor. Now, the doctor can have a very wide range of reality. The doctor can be a nice doctor or a cruel doctor, a good doctor or a bad doctor. The doctor can be a doctor of psychology, a doctor of knee, heart, and throat, or whatever, The doctor can be a whole host of different things, 50 years old, 20 years old. There's this whole range. But people don't go beyond the label to experience the object. Oh, you're marrying a doctor. Or, oh, they're unemployed. And again, I don't want to see beyond the label. I use the label as my guide rather than reality. And then people say, no, it's not that way. But it's hard to know what that way is, because these reductions and labels are incredibly crude. They don't represent the multidimensionality of the original object. And you can kind of see the way that we get imprisoned, that the wonder, the beauty, the innocence, the majesty, the dimensionality of reality gets reduced to a dumbed-down version in the word prison, where we no longer directly experience things, but rather are in our dome. And when we look out, what we look out at are labels and words. And we see the label and words the way other people see the labels and words. That's a homeless person. That's all you need to know. This is how we treat homeless people, and this is how we treat wealthy people. Well, how do you know they're wealthy? Well, we just slapped a label on. They're driving a Rolls Royce. Must be wealthy. And we have this meaning and stuff. And so the purpose of words is efficiency. Because if you take this star and say there's this point at this angle, there's these lighting figures here, there's the feeling I have around it, there's this, it's this star, it's this. If you take, and then it's evolved over 1 million years or 1 billion years. This star is 10 billion years old, and it's like this, and it's this size, and it flickers like this, and in sand, in gravitational pulls, the light bends like this. If you start really seeing even a tiny bit of the object, it becomes unwieldy. It's not efficient. So we say a star, one of many stars. So billions of years get reduced to many stars. And we don't even take the time to feel. So the tragedy and the mediocrity of reality is in some ways corresponded with the most wordy cultures, because there is a presence that's just on the other side of words. And you might see it with a native tribesperson watching you, using a different language, but also watching you in a culture that has a lot of silence. And there's a presence that can be opened up that is wordless. And yet, can we speak about it without words? Can we acknowledge it without words? Or is it a mantle that cannot be felt? Is it something that's just a little bit outside? But there's a richness, there's a texture in not reducing everything to labels and words. Can I go into just pure sensation? Can I expand time, expand dimension, expand meaning, expand presence by lingering in the awareness of something without words? Can I understand that the true freedom is to go beyond the mental meaning and to understand that that which is truly vast and most real is beyond the limited conscious mind's ability to capture, because it doesn't fit into something so small as the zoomed in analytical lens of the conscious mind. That the conscious mind is good at zooming in and reducing things to a level at which it can engage with them, but that in the very reduction of those things to a heuristic value of language, we lose 90%, the vast amount of reality that is there before it was reduced into words. And that one of the benefits of learning multiple languages and looking at things through multiple languages, that one of the benefits of engaging in literature is to expand the words that by their nature have multiple paradoxical meanings. If we look at an object, we see its dimensionality and its paradox. And this is one of the reasons why poetry is the most empowering form of language. Because the very fact that there are gaps between he walketh in an air not filleth with the wonder that maketh words. He walketh in the air with a wonder that maketh words. You see, this makes no sense. It's like a tiled dome with large sections of the lineal arrangement of tiles missing. Meaning, I just made that up. But in the making it up, there is question. What does that mean? And there is no clear answer. I don't know what it means. So you certainly don't know what it means. But you will give it some meaning with space for error. And there will be gaps. Your definition will not be airtight if you look at that. And that is the beauty of poetry. That the real energy comes in the spaces between lineally arranged concepts that seem like a complete equation. He carried the cat. Well, by the time the cat is intimately described and who he is described and what day of the week it is, now it's a pretty tight equation. And so you have the paradox that on the one hand, the clearer you are in words, the tighter the prison in which consciousness resides that's relating to the reality that is referenced by the words. While on the other hand, the less clear the words, the less consciousness you have. If you just say a cat, it's not very conscious. But if you say a cat with furry eyeballs and brown hair with little glitter that was tossed in for a party, and a gelled mohawk on the top of the cat, and with a blue dye. And see, now it's clear, but it's also reduced. Meaning now, if I say a cat, you've got a vision, but someone else has another vision, and someone else has another vision, and none of them are the same. And so you've got the biggest possible version of the probability field called cat if it's not defined. But because it's not defined, it's not very intimate to the conscious mind. So, if language is a tool for a zoom-in lens to grope towards reality, we see this terrain of specificity and lineal tightness, and something more like poetry and expanded consciousness. Because in a poem, 3 or 4 meanings of the poem can exist simultaneously. A man carried a cat out the door. It's not that big of a subject matter. He walketh through air and opens a door in the mind to speak to that which lies beyond the simple meaning of words. It's not quite big enough, is it? The jump he made beyond the light, the door left open from the running. Was it flight? There's a space held that could be quite big. The meanings broken open, and the fragments of the shells called words. Left to fall upon the night, as reason with its tidy box of close-knit threads took flight. There's a host of different images and energies that are in the gaps of a poem that don't exist in lineal thought. Now, the same is true with rationality, with lineal comprehension, and insanity. In insanity, the order has gotten too big for anyone to read the pattern, and so we just label it as insane. We could really say that we are insane because the order is too big for our consciousness to grasp. It's algebra of a nature that is too big for us to fill out the equation. There are too many unknown variables, and so rather than calling us insane, we call the person delivering the equation insane. But it really is a relationship, because incredibly intuitive and perceptive people can still see the pattern that most would label insane. And they can say, no, when he shakes his head like that, he's referencing this. And we're like, oh, now I see it. A sensitive transformed insanity into sanity. No, he's trying to speak. He's trying to communicate. You just don't understand his language. Oh, I see. There's intelligence behind that, but there's intelligence behind everything. So that which we label insane is a communication where the tiles that represent reality, called words, are just too big for us to connect the dots. A few thoughts on words and sanity.